All right, testing. 1 2 1 2. Testing 1 2 3 1 2 3. All right. Kingsley course at Kingsville Fitness, going through a perspective altogether with object-oriented programming and whatnot. So very good right there. Object-oriented programming. All right, so object-oriented programming. Let's get it in. Class with dog. I go through this Python joint. Python. Save. Let me save this. I was going over introduction to Ruby. You know what I'm saying? Ruby on Rails in that sense, but now I gotta get back into Python. Because initially, like what Ruby was going over was just like the basics of programming in that perspective. Right now, I gotta go over a few things here to go over Python's perspective. I even went over LinkedIn Learner's joint, where it was just like the programmer's specific with object oriented, up towards object oriented programming, and just the logic and everything like that. Gotta go over that too. You know what I'm saying? Just to compare and contrast all this craziness. The comparison though is like, in a sense, both of them are using, like this book is on Python, and LinkedIn Learning, they were going over Python as well. They talked about JavaScript for a moment, but they went in with Python. You know what I'm saying? They went in with Python. Because the thing with JavaScript, they keep changing up the frameworks and all kinds of extra. Not in the sense of going through confusion, but stick with the program that's good already. What's up with the upgrades? Is it really necessary, or should we just add in more like vanilla in the JavaScript, and that's as they call it, vanilla, more vanilla in that perspective. But they put the vanilla in the frameworks where they have to, you know what I'm saying, they might have changed a few things within the main framework itself. Instead of creating, like, let's say like they do in WordPress, they have the child theme. You know what I'm saying? The child theme overrides the parent theme in that perspective. So why not have that for frameworks as well? You know what I'm saying? Like JavaScript, they're not thinking in that perspective, or what? You know what I'm saying? Me myself, I can, I can, I'm stating that, and that's real. Why not create, you know what I'm saying, like the child framework to override the parent framework, like they did with Thing right there. You know what I'm saying? Like they did with WordPress. You know what I'm saying? Why don't they do that in that perspective? So in the meantime, there's Python, and then there's what do you call that other one? There's Python and Ruby. Ruby on Rails. Those two programming languages ain't going nowhere in that perspective. So Python and Ruby on Rails, right? So initially I was going over Python once again, creating and using a class. Creating and using a class. So creating the dog class, I got to get that focus in that perspective. Creating the dog class. Creating the dog class. So with Python, I said, I gotta use Visual Studio Code. Hopefully I can still use Visual Studio Code, because there's an issue with Python and Visual Studio Code. I have to dive deeper and all kinds of extra for, you know what I'm saying, that particular type of information. Right now I only have one, or two actually. I have two folders open in a sense, or even two projects in that perspective, which is pretty much the practice of programming. In that sense right there, I'm about to open another window to create this one for Python. I think I have a folder for Python. Clearly I got a folder for Python. I don't have to do I don't have to create anything new. In that sense right there, just open the folder in that perspective through Visual Studio Code. And now further going into finding out open up the folder in that perspective within the documents. Now, I got a few folders. Okay, I got this one folder that says Python in that perspective. I got folders that's like based on some boot camps and whatever in that perspective, like Rhythm School. They have a good boot camp in that perspective where you're giving like free tutorials where you can learn in that sense. You feel me? So you know what I'm saying, expand your knowledge in that sense right there. Or expand your practice as you get your practice in. And then you eventually come up with your own ideas. And you can start opening up your ideas in that perspective through programs and what have you, interactive in that sense. Now, again with Python, I got a few of these folders, got a few documents in here in that sense. Got one on programming fundamentals. That's from LinkedIn Learning, which I'm not on right now. I'm not gonna rock with that as of right now. But I might keep this main folder for Python itself open to get back and to go back and forth with it, because I have some screenshots of got some screenshots of some of these programs and whatnot, and their comparison in that perspective, from the real world to programming in that sense. So instead of just having this one open, I'm gonna have two pieces open in that sense. I got like 3 folders though. So but both folders, okay, so one is like, so Python crash course, that's what I was initially, like going into within the within classes initially. Let me see, within classes initially. So there's the, I got that, there's my folder individually where, putting in the information, getting it, and you have some samples you could put in. Those samples being like problems to solve. So I went in there, I went in there all together. Now this right here is a challenge right here. Going through that object-oriented programming perspective. Yeah, it's been on the years. Oh, you're a programmer in that sense. Web developers, at a time, at one time, didn't have to deal with object-oriented programming in that sense. They still don't. You still don't have to deal with that shit. So they have teams and all kinds of extra all together in that perspective. But see, me is like kind of sort of one-man army kind of characteristics. This part right here has to be, that's that level of computer science that I touched, but then I didn't dive deep into. So I'm just diving in right as we speak. You know what I'm saying? So this example of a class right here is for, like a dog in that perspective. So class dog, which is a simple attempt to model a dog, okay? So, and then there's like 3 functions for the dog in that perspective. You know what I'm saying? Initializing it. First you gotta initialize it all together, and then be like what? Self, the name, and the age. Those are parameters. Those are the parameters and everything. Like when you call those parameters within let's say the dog class in that perspective, like this is just the class written out versus calling the class out like I believe so, versus like calling it out in that perspective. So yeah, let me see. As I was going in, I should have went deeper into this also. But then there's a calling of it in that perspective, right? Calling that class, making an instance for a class. All right, so I'm gonna get back into that part. Because there's 2 parts of it all together, the combination. There's the actual writing of the class, and then there's the calling of the class in that sense. So let me see what's good in that perspective. All right, so zoom in on it up. I should flip this in that. Let me flip it. Yeah, so calling the class and whatnot, right? All right, this ain't too bad, because right behind me in that perspective, I'm trying to remember what Savon Beaumont mentioned about you see like every angle of like a square, the point in the square. Now, if you look at that point from the center of that point, because there's like, let's say how many points in a square in that perspective. We got 4 of those points. If I'm saying like imagine yourself inside of a box, which we are in, and then look at that point from the inside. Look at that point from the inside, and technically speaking, that's where I'm standing. I'm standing at that point in front of that point, in front of the I'm in front of that point as the camera's in front of me in that sense right there, right? But it's kind of at a side angle. So I'm gonna keep it like that in a sense for perspective. I was going over perspective in drawing, which was cool, which showing those, like, let's say, okay, so I give you a little spoiler. Now there's 3 angles to reach the point. There's 3 angles to reach that point. That's that spoiler right there. Get you thinking right there. That's that art right there in perspective right there. I was going through that yesterday in that sense. Some people were talking about, like manga versus out here in the Western type of scene, or some like Marvel and DC. So you see me, like, I was going over manga concepts in that perspective. But you see me, everybody on some like on within the books and whatnot. You go from left to right. That's out here. Out there, they go from right to left. You see the comic books, the manga joints, manga comic books in that sense, from right to left. And my art, you know what I'm saying? I created mad panels, X amount of panels. So I'm going from programming to art and vice, back and forth. Because that's what I went through yesterday. And it's kind of intertwined with what's going on today. Because the easiest way to go through a programming language is to create. And when I was interacting with some programmers through Free Code Camp, when they had those boot camps in that perspective, and they were going in with it. We came in stating what we want to accomplish, as programmers in that sense. I'm overhearing other characters speak about role-playing games. Creation of role-playing games. Now, within role-playing games, there's questions and answers based on where you're going or what have you, or what you're doing or whatever. You know what I'm saying? The same rules apply, technically speaking, is through these devices we have as phones. These phones that we using and going through that roles that we playing in this game. That's how it go. Even in that sense, even deeper with the actual computer, going in deeper in that perspective of the role-playing game. Strangely enough, like they talking about some craziness on some metaverse-ish. I'm like, metaverse? What are y'all talking about? I think some people go through the Oculus or what have you, just to see a virtual world and whatnot. Maybe act more like themselves in a virtual world versus being themselves out here. You know what I'm saying? But I guess that's okay. You know what I'm saying? As long as I guess the person having fun, this, that, Now, how did I go from programming to art to the metaverse? It's a combination of the two and then some. I see my daughter, she plays a little bit of Roblox here and there. You feel me? That's like a role playing, not like a role playing game per se. It's more or less, it's a lot of information you're putting in and in that perspective for your avatar within Roblox as an example. You know what I mean? I'm kind of familiar, I played a little bit back when it was fun. It gets boring after a while, you know what I'm saying? Like and that's when I was, like me and my daughter, we were playing within Roblox in that perspective and just, having fun in that sense. Let's see. And for me, I didn't upgrade my avatar within Roblox in that perspective. I ain't had no time, no time for this, that, and the next with that. But technically speaking, I got a bunch of programmers in there going through the logic and shit. Excuse my language. Going through the logic in that perspective. Everything that you create within there is like, like literally as a programmer to write down the information, because that's all like, it's all step by step situations going on in that perspective, and then that's like, mix it up as created as pseudocode, and then get pseudocode the let's say the matrix between this world and the computer world, in that sense, the pseudocode. So from the real world to the computer world, in that pseudocode, it's from English to pseudocode to programming languages such as Python and JavaScript. Yeah, because those are the two big ones right there. And the one that's not talked about too tough, but is really, really good, Ruby. And then there's like, which Ruby has a little framework called Rails. So Ruby on Rails in that sense, right? So those are three powerful programming languages, not just for the web in that sense. Because when I stated about a framework, that's more or less, talking about web development and all that good stuff right there, which is great. But then there's other types of, like I see programmers creating video games with Python using Pygame as maybe a you create your little sprites, or, your little character, have your little character go into different poses to show what the character is doing within the game sequence. In that sense, right there, it was cool getting to know a little bit about Nintendo 8-bit and how they put so much information in there. How they were able to put so little megabytes, even kilobytes, even kilobytes. That's like the smallest of the smallest right there in storage for the computer, or at least on a disk, because you know what I'm saying. Also known as like cartridge for video games. You know what I'm saying, like, you know what I mean, like a smile on my face with Nintendo cartridge right there. You feel me? That was cool having Nintendo cartridges. That was like a first. To me, that was my first computer. Nintendo was my first. You know what I'm saying? It had a little memory card right there, which was the cartridge. That memory card, you know what I'm saying, like that, what some people see as memory cards. It was initially back in the days were cartridges. They called them cartridges. Because you already know video games was derived from the computer itself right there. They had computers with the floppy disks and all that craziness right there. And then they figure out how to create a computer with a computer chip. They call it consoles. These video games are called consoles. I'm trying to think a little harder right there, and that's a little bit extra right there with Nintendo itself. Because you see like some ill games being made today off of 8-bit. You know what I'm saying? You see all kinds of craziness that's going on some 8-bit right there. Because all that's derived from imagination that went from 8-bit to 16-bit, 32-bit, 64-bit. And I got any even more in that sense with computers in that perspective. I guess from maybe after 64-bit, all kinds of extras in that sense of, like, let's say video game sequences throughout the years. The video game sequences, the sales, and all kinds of extra throughout the years and whatnot. Anyway, Python again though, right? So again with the class and whatnot. I'm converting the computer language, flipping it into English. So I gotta get this pseudocode, you know what I'm saying, reverse this engineering in that perspective. Good, you know what I'm saying, like see about the pseudocode, mix up English with, you know what I'm saying, with the computer language in that perspective, which is a pseudocode. So let's say, for instance, on the dog class, I'm gonna have to go over this a couple of times right there, even though it's like, okay, so this is actually the actual class itself. And I ain't going to call in the class. I'm like, wait, what? It's like it's a bunch of functions in a main module, which is also known as a class, which is also kind of in some ways known as a function. It's a function within a function, like technically speaking, in that perspective right there. You know what I'm saying? It's like a bunch of functions within a class, which also known as a module in that sense. What I'm going over is Python Crash Course. Yo, how many times I went through this piece right here? You know what I'm saying? Not really how many times, but real talk. Like all right, check this out. So we have, this is two sides of the book. Right here on the right side is what I've gone through, or even going through just now. And on the left side is a whole lot more pages. Now these whole heap of pages, like, yo, after like classes and whatnot, it goes into creation of a video game, which is kind of sort of like what's that? Some kind of alien joint where they shooting upwards, like an 8-bit type of scenario in Python. I'm looking at the code itself. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm looking at the code itself, and I gotta think about it. And this is like a while back since I used this book even. You know what I'm saying? You go in between, everybody talking about the hype of JavaScript. So you jump into that mix of JavaScript and what have you, and you put down Python to the sidelines as I did. But now it's in the front lines because after going through Linen.com's joint, right? Now it's LinkedIn Learning. You know what I'm saying? Lynda.com is that good where LinkedIn bought Lynda.com out. And this, you know what I'm saying, that platform that I'm talking about, again, it's a learning tool. LinkedIn Learning. It's now called LinkedIn Learning. I guess to state, okay, you're learning is learning of programming in that perspective. So I went into LinkedIn Learning. There's one that's programming foundations. Programming foundations. And I went through that for a minute. It's like that's like almost like one of those like curriculums. Maybe like, okay, that versus art versus just general web development. You know what I'm saying? Because that's just straight up programming that I dived into in that sense, and it took me back here into where I left off even, because initially this is like the last piece of the puzzle in that perspective, and you put them all together because everything is together, literally. You know what I'm saying? It all, you know what I'm saying? Like, and they say, so as I was getting diving in further, something told me to look up Ruby on Rails. I guess it was somewhere when I was listening to some YouTube developers, YouTube characters that are actually web developers, if not software engineers. You know what I'm saying? And they talking about, you know what I'm saying, like object-oriented programming and how everything comes together as one in that perspective. So I was busy singing this piece right there. Went into a little rap format, or even get that instrumentals and just read off the books. You feel me? Get that instrumentals and read off the books. Get that instrumentals and read off the books. You feel me? That's how you get that's how you get that information in your head a little bit too. If not, just read off the book itself. Or in the sense of it's all, you know, being that it's all practical. It's all practice right there. You know what I'm saying? It's all practice. Like literally. You know what I mean? So it's like so going into like creating and using a class, I'm busy going into this mix in my computer right now to open up Visual Studio Code and start typing away a little something right there. The dog class. You know what I mean? The dog class right there. So as I was like preparing and everything like that, a Visual Studio Code is open the whole 9 yards. I should just create that dog class within the folder. I got 3 folders for Python. 3 folders for 3 folders, which is actually 2. The third, technically speaking, is the program files that's from LinkedIn Learning, in that sense, to be like, oh, okay, I'm you know what I'm saying, like offline. I'm not watching the videos, this, that, and the other. Let me look over the actual code, rewrite the code, think about all that's been talked about within the within LinkedIn Learning from these programmers when they're comparing the real world to coding, and go from there. You know what I mean? But then I'm like, okay, so that's cool, that's good, that's great, that's great. And then there's the same concept, similar concept right there, because all that talk right there was like, it was verbatim talk, like talk, and it's almost like I would have to go over it again, or even take notes, of course, compare and contrast, because they were talking about, for instance, an omelette and a pancake, where both have similar functionalities. So there's a main function that would have a few instructions based on those 2 functions. One function is an omelet. Next function is a pancake, where the introduction of, you know what I'm saying, mixing the ingredients, getting the frying pan, using oil on the frying pan, whatever, this, that, and the next. And then you know what I'm saying, like even the mixing of the ingredients can become another function based on those two different, you know what I'm saying, ingredients, right? Those 2 different objects, technically speaking, that we eat. You know what I'm saying? Like omelet and a pancake. The similarities, you know what I'm saying, they both, you have to mix up the ingredients for both of them. But it's a different scenario though. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of different. I mean, this is me going off of LinkedIn Learning's piece, just as an example. So I can re-see this all together here, this, other, that. You know what I'm saying? So omelet and the egg, and then towards the end of it, where it's like after it's being cooked or whatever, it's the omelet is ready, or the pancake is ready, and that part is like within their own functions. But then the function within a function, the first few steps that's within let's say the main function for both of them right there, that both of them could use right there. So capture that piece and put it inside that function on top of further instructions. But that's what it is initially. The functions are a bunch of instructions. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I remember even in LinkedIn Learning, they compared programming with Lego blocks right there. You see, you compared it to Lego blocks and whatnot. And then again, at the same time, I'm thinking about Roblox or whatever. Yo, my daughter she in there playing and all kinds of extra at times. You know what I'm saying? Like, Roblox is lit. It's actually, you know what I'm saying, it's a good look right there, especially to get you thinking logically. You know what I'm saying? I'm trying to, you know what I'm saying, like, I'm in the mix of teaching my daughter how to program, how to learn programming. But you know what I'm saying, it's like kind of sort of, when you go over it, in a sense, it might be a little boring or what have you. You know what I'm saying? In comparison to art. You know what I'm saying? She gung ho with drawing. That's what's up. Get that art going. We draw, we draw, we draw. You know what I mean? But when it comes to programming, it's a different story. But then, fortunately, again, the logic within Roblox, where you're going through, where you're going over those instructions, you're going through it, you're interacting with the, you know what I'm saying, with the avatar in that perspective. You're giving instruction to the avatar, almost like how they had this, like, back in the days. I think it was in Japan and originally, the Tomogotchi. The Tomogotchi right there. Either, am I saying it right? I don't know. Let's say, for instance, the first type of let's say it was like an egg inside of a digital platform or what have you. You know what I'm saying? Like a little toy or whatever for the kids. And the egg cracked, and then it's like a character within the egg, almost like a Pokemon. And then with that, let's say fast forward to Pokemon, because it went from Tomogachi to Pokemon in that perspective. If it's not the same, if it wasn't the same time frame, like literally, it's a different story from Is this, you know what I'm saying? Like, those are two different stories, but it's almost the same thing. You know what I mean? Tomogachi joints is like you're raising up the little fictional character, the little fictional animal. In that sense, a Pokemon is a fictional animal that you train to fight. In that sense, right there, you know what I mean? So anyway, and again, that's like, especially with, as I'm thinking back with, like, let's say the Game Boy version of Pokemon, like the old school version and shit, where it's like that shit looks like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm visualizing how how it was emulated and how it's played, and how to rethink about it, reverse it into programming language, or back to programming, you know what I'm saying, from programming language into itself. That's creation of video games. That's how you create video games in that sense right there. You know what I mean? Even if it's just like in the beginning, like a bunch of words, questions and answers type, that's like role-playing games right there. As long as the story, it's a story right there. You know what I'm saying? Like, again, even with the combination of that and art, once again, there has to be a story in that perspective. That's why I be going over, I can't say that's why I be going over scripts. I need to keep going over scripts right there. And there's, you know what I'm saying, there's that book that I got from, let me see here. What's his name again? Joe Kubert. Hold on a second. It's been a minute since I seen the cover of his book in that perspective right there. You feel me? Yeah. So Joe Kubert's book called Penciling right there. Yo, like, it's like 5 chapters, mad short chapters, really short chapters, and the last chapter, nothing but scripts right there. Script examples of creation from the script to visualization of it on different panels and whatnot. You know what I'm saying? Prior to that is, like, I guess, not general information on how to draw, but technically speaking, and as short as it is, it ain't for, you know what I'm saying, beginners type scene. Yo, the first person I heard that talked about his book in that sense was I'm trying to remember this character's name. It's been a long time, but he's one of those characters that helped create the Simpsons. You know what I'm saying? Throughout those years, throughout those seasons, he was one of those artists in that sense. And he recommended certain types of books in that perspective, which I was like, oh, let me write it down. Oh, let me buy the book. Oh, let me try let me go through trial and error. Another book that was recommended was like Jack Ham's books. I say books because like two of them. The first one is like more or less on cartooning. The cartooning version has so much details versus the one that's on real life. Because of course, in the perspective, you think about it. Okay, you start with real life. Oh, you look at real life, this, that, and the other, and you just break down the details. You know what I'm saying? Less detail becomes a cartoonish look. You know what I'm saying? And maybe even put in some details for expressions of that cartoonish look. You know what I mean? But there's more details in expression in reality. I can do a little short pose. I show expression of happiness. You know what I'm saying? So there's various expressions in that perspective. So I'm going back and forth again. You see, it's like it's the left side and right side of the brain type of situation. You feel me? Because that's what it is ultimately. You know what I mean? The logical side in that sense right there, with my right hand going onto the left side of the brain. But there's the right side of the brain with the left side of the hand getting into that art scene in that perspective, or you know what I'm saying, going through that process of art. Right? The combination right there, put the hands together, you want a computer right there typing. Put the two hands together now. You got the two hands together typing in that sense. Just to get both logic and creative in, and that's programming. Cause they say, I don't know. Let me see, hold on a second. Pause real quick. They're saying programming is boring for one. Programming, we get creativity in the mix in programming. That's two. Those are two questions right there, right? I'm gonna do a little pause on that perspective as I go through my side of programming through the art of Kingslow Fitness. This is Kingslow Fitness. Kingsley Cross at Kingslow Fitness. KINGZLO Fitness. KINGZLO Fitness. And I take a little day off, not really a day off per se, for my workout routine. I was going in for days right there, you feel me? Sometimes I gotta take a day off, this, that, and the next two. It's a combination. I even drew myself old school self that I still, you know what I'm saying, like get that drawing in of self right there. You know what I mean? I exaggerated self a little bit. The striations with their definition and the whole niners, but maybe slightly bigger, I guess. You know what I mean? But that was just in my art in that sense, because technically speaking, when you're slightly off, sometimes you gotta improvise. So that's why I improvised. That's why I improvised in that sense. And it's art. It's just art in that perspective. But then it's fruition because, get that workout in different types of routines. This is Kingslow Fitness, mind you. KINGZLO Fitness. You heard? You know what I mean? Let's get my own personal training in. My own personal training in. KINGZLO Fitness. Let me get into this programming all together with this class of dog, where there's the self, there's the name, and there's the age. Self is like the main piece of the puzzle, technically speaking. This is now me going on this rant for a minute now. For that, let's go like this for a moment since I'm on camera. Oh. So they say just make some movements with the hands, blah blah, to show, this is like another scene. I'm on the next scene right there. Even make a note on this 34 minutes and counting. You know what I'm saying? Or even start anew. Let's start anew.